Hello everyone, welcome to episode 28 of Last Minute FPL. This is the Gameweek 28 podcast. Hi Vikas, how are you?
Doing well. How are you? Think it's been a week or two since we have done this. Missed the last one because of a small technical issue, but hopefully we get through this one without any glitch.
Yeah, I'll take responsibility for that one. I hope you can hear me clearly because I've set the audio to this mic. But yeah, it's been a while since the last deadline as well. There was FA Cup after the previous midweek round of fixtures, where a lot of things have happened. Some clarity on the fixtures, some question marks on future fixtures, and also a lot of injuries. So let's jump right into it. So we'll start by looking at last week's points, and the AI team once again back into the top 10k. Very amazing week, 74 points. Almost everyone in the team returned except for Palmer and Pickford. All three defenders returning, four midfielders, Pedro and Wissa, both scoring. And actually, the AI team benched Wissa, but Isak's injury was like a blessing in disguise, and it's back up to 7.2k.
Yeah, when things are going well, they just keep going well for the AI team. Irrespective of who's there in that attacking eight or defense, they're just cracking up points. I think all around really strong team and performance, even with Isak missing out. Nothing much to say, I think. Just good, especially after a few bad weeks. I think this is very positive for the AI team.
Yeah, I think it was much needed. It fell from 2k to 17k in a span of 3 or 4 weeks. So yeah, back in the top 10k, and a good sign of like last 10-11 game weeks. If it can finish strong, at least there's someone in this podcast who's doing decent. Moving on to my team, this was a pretty good week actually. So previous game week I fell by 200,000 ranks, and this week I gained back around 130k. Bruno was a big difference maker, and Joao Pedro as well. I went with Palmer captain over Salah. I still feel like it was a good decision. Palmer had racked up his highest XG of the season actually, and it was very unfortunate or bad finishing, whatever you call it, to not come away with anything. Happy about Trent and Van Dijk and Gabriel getting clean sheets. And I'm also very glad I didn't do Watkins to Cunha in the end, because Watkins got the assist and I didn't lose out on a transfer. Yeah, overall good game week, but season is kind of in limbo with the people I'm chasing very, very far ahead of me.
You should just skip over the next slide for my team. It's an absolute disaster. Everything's gone wrong. It's not the thing is, during the game week things go wrong, you're disappointed, but things just got worse after the game week with all the injuries in the team. So it's just been a complete downhill for the past 1 week in terms of on and off the pitch. I think on the pitch, very disappointing that pretty much Palmer captain again. I thought that that fixture was a good one for Palmer, and it didn't work out, but that's okay. Things happen. But Robinson, nothing from zero from Robinson. Mitoma, my transfer in, nothing again, and then got injured midweek. Don't know if he's going to play. Cunha did something stupid and he's out for a few weeks. Again, another recent transfer at the expense of getting Glasner, that too. So it's just been an absolute disaster, and the team's in a bit of a shambles as well.
Yeah, I think very unfortunate, especially the injuries. Maybe you can say that Hall and Isak, even if they don't come back, you can transfer them out. But Mitoma and Cunha were people you got in for the blank. I did hear that Mitoma will at least be back by game week 29, but Cunha is an unfortunate one because he I think even in the AI projections, he was basically the highest projected player. So it's very unlucky that. And it's the second time he's doing something really silly this season. So yeah, seems to be.
I feel like, we'll get to it, but I missed all of Cunha's good points and the easier fixtures, and now when I get him, he's just gone. There's just no escaping. I just have a prediction for what's going to happen. We'll get to it when we talk about next week's transfers, but I do have a bad feeling about something that I've already done.
Yeah, I definitely think that Cunha is a bit of a thorn in many managers' shoes this year because I think after his previous action, which should have got him suspended, the Premier League waited for like 5 or 6 game weeks without doing anything, where he just kept scoring. So you obviously are not going to bring him in, but those who already and he's, I think, also the player who's outperformed his XG the most alongside Chris Wood.
Good.
So as a non-owner, it'll definitely be bitter, and yeah, bringing him in for the blank game week seemed like a no-brainer. I was probably just waiting another week to do it, but yeah, very unlucky. Uh, Having said that, let's now take a look at the mini league standings because there has been a change at the top. Our very own AI team back in front after both Conte and Alan Evans had forgettable game weeks, 48 points each, and the AI team with 74 points. So yeah, I mean it's still very close up at the top, all within 20 points of each other. But title race heating up for sure.
Yeah, congratulations to the AI team, and also shout out to Sampath for entering the top 4. Pretty good milestone. Seems like he's on the up.
Yeah, and he's in the top 100k as well. Will be a good solid finish if he can propel himself up and challenge the top 3.
On the other hand, at the bottom of the table, there's also been a change with me sliding down to 30th. So my battle for 25th does seem farther than I expected. And it does seem like a very big hill to climb at this point in time. The gap has opened up to like 50 plus points. Actually thinking whether I need to revise my expectations there. 25 is too lofty a hill to climb.
Yeah. Even for me, I really don't know what my target is this season. As you can see, I had a good week. Looks like I crossed a few managers, but then there were other managers like Balagopal and FPL Research who had like outstanding weeks. So I remain constant on 18th. And even in many of my mini leagues, a lot of people extended their lead over me despite me having a good game week. So yeah, I think I'm around 80 points behind the leaders in most of my mini leagues. And in 10-11 game weeks, you need to get very lucky to overcome that. So yeah, I think at this point it's just witnessing the AI team and giving advice, even though there's no credibility there.
I think it's useful, it's always good to learn from what we're doing and not kind of do what we do, essentially. Inverse the transfer decisions still seems pretty reliable, especially given how things have been going.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's take a look at the last week's games now. I mean, it has been a while since since these games happened. But yeah, I can talk about maybe the Liverpool and the Chelsea games in parallel because most of us captained either Palmer or Salah. It was very tough watching the Liverpool-Newcastle game after Palmer blanked. I mean, Salah definitely had a bit of an off day, but we know how he can just turn on and score anytime he wants. And actually, Hall defended admirably against him. He put in a good few tackles, especially towards the end when Salah was on the counter, and it looked like he would get that goal that he always does. He seemed a bit more generous than normal. Salah. He was playing these outside of the boot crosses to the far post where Darwin luckily missed a couple of chances, and yeah, I mean, definitely a bit lucky, but Palmer, again, you can see that he has 1.4 xgi there, and he missed 2 1-on-1s, one decent chance which he usually scores, and pretty frustrating to captain him.
Yeah, and congratulations to the Nkunku owners, people who did get him in. I think it's a good. The risk here was him not starting the game. I think that's what kind of put a lot of people off. But if you did get him in, I think you deserve those high rewards, which is a huge differential given not a lot of people own him.
Yeah. And another interesting thing is Palace beating Villa 4-1, and it was a completely dominating performance. Like they created more than 4 xg, and Villa are no mugs. I don't know what Palace does. Like Palace are so unpredictable. I think they're perfect for assistant manager. There are managers out there who got Salah triple captain for 29, and then they did assistant manager Emery, and then they had Glasner for back-to-back 20 pointers, which is incredible. And yeah, I think Palace are perfect because they have very low lows and very high highs. They can beat any team on their given day, and it definitely worked out for those who went with Glasner here.
Yeah, Mr. Sar with 2 goals just ticks me off. I was the most loyal Sar owner for maybe almost 8 weeks of getting 2 to 3 points. Again, congratulations to those who held him, who had even more patience than me. The 15 points, great return. Munoz doing great as well. I kind of regret selling Munoz, maybe not Sar. I think I was done with him, but Munoz, really good, strong option. I think I probably will get him back after the blank.
Yeah, and another injury here is Mateta. He got a pretty serious injury in the FA Cup. He'll be out for at least a couple of weeks, and he also blanks in game week 29. So yeah, add him to the list of injuries and suspensions. I do want to touch upon the Nottingham Forest Arsenal game. Arsenal looked kind of toothless in attack. Although I'm saying that, and they beat PSV 7-1 in the Champions League. From just 2 xg created, they scored 7 goals. Incredible finishing. But against Forest, they really didn't create much. And Forest, in fact, took a bit of a gamble. They didn't play 5 at the back like they normally do. They played 4 at the back. And the reason was that Arsenal don't have a striker. So it wasn't that Forest was sitting back and keeping it tight. It was just that Arsenal just couldn't find a way to create enough.
Yeah, very impressive result for Forest. We had to also touch upon the Man United Ipswich game 3-2. I think a bit of a comeback win for United, and Bruno Fernandes is making you quite happy these days.
Yeah, and not making Roy Keane happy for some reason. Roy Keane went on an absolute rant against Bruno, and I think that it's only fair that I come out and defend Bruno. but yeah, I mean, he's the one player who can hold his head up high in the last 5 or 6 years because he actually absolutely gives it his everything. So to question his effort was a bit weird. And once again, United were down to 10 men, and towards the end of this game, Bruno was just defending in the box, attacking in the box. He was running the length of the pitch. But again, his returns are unpredictable because they kind of rely on set pieces, and you don't really know. He is still playing CDM, so he's an easy hold because he has a fixture in the blank and he's playing against Leicester, but he's definitely not a buy. We should touch upon the Spurs-Man City game as well because Haaland also, like Palmer, creating 1.4 xg, will be tough to get to him by game week 29 without getting rid of Salah or Palmer unless you have really good team value. But he seems like he's back on the menu.
Yeah, especially with, I think, a lack of strikers. As you go through the list of strikers, it's just shocking at how few options there are. Might be time. Just, again, I think if there are valuable alternatives, it's still hard to justify Haaland, but just because of the lack of strikers and with City's kind of fixtures, the way they're falling with the doubles, definitely someone that I'm looking at, even though I've been burned so many times.
Yeah, in a matter of 24 hours, I think some people's front line got entirely wiped out. Mateta got injured, Cunha got suspended, and Isak got brought off. And because they have Carabao Cup final, we don't know if they'll risk him in the West Ham game. So yeah, I think players like Marmoush and Haaland are definitely interesting because City are good captaincy candidates in 29, and they have a game against Leicester in 30 as well. So even in the medium term, there are some good options. Cool. Let's move on. Let's take a look at next week's fixtures. So this is the last game week before the blank game week. And the two clear standouts once again are Liverpool against Southampton and Chelsea against Leicester. Any plans of going Palmer over Salah for this?
No, I can't do it. Liverpool, Southampton, best team versus the best team by far versus the worst team by far at home. I can't take that risk. I just wish I had a third Liverpool player, honestly, for this game.
The only concern I have is that so Liverpool played against PSG away in the first leg, and they got completely dominated. They didn't get a look in. Allison was in God mode, and he made some incredible saves. They came away with a 1-0 win, which is at least good, and I'm hoping that Salah still plays. But there is a small chance that being 13 points clear, they may rotate or maybe bring Salah on for the last 30 minutes or something. Does that bother you?
I expect Salah to start because he's just a machine. Like he just starts every game, and but I do think he can come off. So I think that probably is the more likely scenario that he just comes off at 60 minutes or so. So the returns may not be, the maximum he can get in this type of a game, but I think a goal and assist is still probably on the menu for 60 minutes.
Makes sense. I think yeah, I agree with you. He's more likely to start than not. I think Slot won't want any complacency to creep in. And but Liverpool definitely maybe if they'd lost 1-0, I would have been a bit more concerned. They somehow got the result, so that should be good. But Chelsea against Leicester is also a really good
I think
game
that
to
game
target.
is tricky. I don't feel like it's a 3-0 whatever is being shown here, right? Like I think it will be a tricky game because Leicester have turned up against Chelsea pretty often, and I just don't expect it to be easy. Southampton are terrible. They're like a really terrible team. They did well. Chelsea did well, but Chelsea's not in good form. They're not in good form except for that one game, and I don't expect that game to be too easy, honestly.
But Leicester are too bad. Like we saw what Brentford did against them when they were targeted, for example. I mean Chelsea have too much quality. I feel they'll at least create enough chances. But
I think
yeah,
the problem is the lack of striker. Sure, Nkunku's there. Maybe Nkunku can do it versus Leicester as well, but it's still a big question mark. And I think that's where the uncertainty lies in terms of attacking returns.
makes sense. Is there any other game? So there is the Spurs Bournemouth game as well. I know it shows it very close here, but Spurs basically have only the Europa League to play for at this point, and they lost the first leg today. So I feel like players like Semenyo or Kluivert or Utara, I think they should. I'm pretty sure Spurs will just play a completely second string team, and I'm hoping for it at least as someone who owns two of their attackers.
Yeah. I mean, I like Bournemouth in this game, at least for the attack. I also like the Arsenal Man United game um, but Arsenal haven't been in good form in attack. That's what kind of stops me. But that's also I'm curious to see how that game pans out because if Arsenal kind of like how they've done midweek, if they can get similar returns and Man United are still bad, then that's a potential fruitful fixture. And with the plan coming up, it's a question as to are they with all the injuries that are in the team, are they a team to target?
Yeah, it'll be a good testing ground at least. Like I am curious to see how players like Trossard or Nwaneri play against a team like United. I know they smashed PSV, so they must be in good confidence. Um, but yeah, I think Forest Man City is another interesting game. Again, a trial run, one more trial run for City players like Haaland and Marmoush. I have a feeling that whatever happens in this game, managers do tend to be biased towards the most recent result. So if Marmoush goes and gets a brace, we'll see a lot of teams with Marmoush. Whereas if Haaland or maybe even Chris Wood gets a bunch of goals, that's probably going to decide a lot of people's striker position due to recency bias.
Agree, completely agree.
Cool. Let's move on. Uh, and yeah, finally, this is the assistant manager projected points. If anyone still is playing it this week, So Ange Postecoglou is the one who's projected to get the most points, but I personally wouldn't go for him for the reasons I mentioned before. I don't think that they'll be going all out to win this game or playing their first choice team. But otherwise, on paper, Spurs against Bournemouth at home is, I think, a good
I agree
table
completely.
bonus target. Yeah, otherwise it's Slot and Maresca with their so-called safe picks with Southampton and Leicester at home, and then West Ham against Newcastle at home. An injury-depleted Newcastle ahead of Carabao Cup final, and a kind of resurgent West Ham. I think that's also a good shout.
I think you have to go with Ange, right? The 65% of table bonus.
Yeah.
You have to go with Ange.
Yeah, 60. I think when Glasner first got his 20-pointer, he had like 53% chance of table bonus. And last week, I think it was 60. So this is the highest I've seen for a table bonus game. So, yeah. Cool. Yeah, moving on to some talk about the chip strategy. So, with the FA Cup quarterfinal draw being out, we now have a little more clarity into how the doubles and blanks will fall. So, on the left here, you see the FA Cup quarterfinal draw. We have Fulham playing Palace, Preston playing Aston Villa, Brighton playing Forest, and Bournemouth playing Man City. Now, why this is important for FPL is that these FA Cup games will take place during game week 34. The semi-finals will take place during game week 34. So whoever wins these quarterfinal games, we'll see their fixtures being postponed from game week 34. So the fixtures on the right, which have been circled, these fixtures are not guaranteed to be there in 34. We do have Chelsea versus Everton, Wolves versus Leicester, and Liverpool versus Spurs, and Newcastle versus Ipswich. These fixtures are confirmed to be in game week 34. But these other fixtures that are circled, it'll depend on who wins these quarterfinals. Now, I think this draw is not the best draw in terms of being able to predict what will happen, because Fulham versus Palace is going to be hard to predict. Brighton versus Forest is also going to be...
Villa is probably the only prediction
Yeah.
that can reliably or have high confidence in.
Yeah, and because Man City also will be slight favourites against Bournemouth, it's hard to see a world where both Preston and Bournemouth win their FA Cup games. So maybe you can say that the Man City Villa game will be postponed. But yeah, basically, this is something to keep in mind. And we will know more about it once the quarterfinal games happen. But the reason it's important now is that you kind of need to decide whether you're going to free hit or not in game week 29. And if you're choosing to go with the free hit, you should be knowing what's going to happen in game week 32 to 36, so that you're aware of the risk you're taking in terms of navigating those game weeks. So let's look at it in a little more detail. So there are about 6 game weeks of interest in terms of doubles and blanks. So the sheet that you're seeing on the left is a percentage likelihood of a fixture being a double game week or a blank game week. You can pause and take a look at it in detail. But what's actually important here is that we know that game week 29 is a blank game week. It's confirmed. We also know that game week 32 is a double for Newcastle and Crystal Palace. That's confirmed as well. We just saw that there will be some fixtures that will be postponed from game week 34. And this season, the Premier League has been very proactive in rescheduling fixtures. So according to a lot of fixture predictors like Ben Krellin or Johnny Curry, who created this infograph, you can follow him on Blue Sky. The most likely destination for those fixtures is game week 33, which is 1 week before game week 34, which makes it very complicated to navigate it without a chip, because you will be wanting players who double in game week 32, and then game week 33 will be a double, but then those players will blank in game week 34. So you would at least need one chip to be able to it'll be very tough to manage it through transfers. So it's important that if you're using your free hit in 29, you have a plan of how you're going to navigate these game weeks. And there is an outside chance of a potential double game week in 36 and a blank in 37 because of the Europa League final and the FA Cup final. If the Premier League decides to be proactive there as well, then we could see an extra double and blank. So bottom line for me is, if you can, save your chips, save your free hit, unless you absolutely need to use it in 29. And if you do need to use it, have some idea of how you would navigate this period. So having
Right, and just to clarify, the 36, it's going to be just a single double in a single blank, right? Because or maybe two doubles and two blanks.
Yeah, it'll be at least two because so for example, if Aston Villa reach the FA Cup final and their fixture has to be rearranged in game week 36, then they would ask for their opponent's game in the FA Cup final to be like, for example, Man City. Aston Villa is supposed to play Man City, I think, in game week 37. So they would like, it would be unfair if teams have different days of rest. So the Premier League usually rearranges both the teams' fixtures. So yeah, it'll likely be two, but again, we don't
Can
know.
be one also if they
Exactly.
fit it in.
Yeah, and there's also things like, for example, the Forest Brighton game. Even if it gets postponed from game week 34, neither of those teams are in Europe. So the Premier League may decide to leave it in game week 34 and put it in midweek. So none of these rearrangements are confirmed, but it's just something to keep an eye on as the weeks progress. Yeah, and then I also put together the three most common options in terms of chip strategy. So the most common thing I think would be if you can survive game week 29 without using a free hit, then you would most likely wildcard in 31. And the reason for this is that even though the FA Cup fixtures take place before the game week 30 deadline, you won't know where the Premier League has rearranged the fixtures till game week 31. And most of the teams that have good fixtures in 29 also have good fixtures in 30. So I think that option 1 and 2 will be the most popular chip strategies. In option 1, you would be doing a bench boost in game week 33, which is likely to be the bigger double. And then you'll free hit in 34, where the 6 or 8 teams blank. But if we find out that there aren't enough postponements, or if game week 34 is easy to navigate, then you also have the option of bench boosting in 32 with Crystal Palace and Newcastle having a double game week. And you can free hit in the double in game week 33, which is a double game week. Now the third option, where you're free hitting in 29, you ideally want to save your wildcard till the blank game week 34 and find a way to and I think it does kind of allow you to do that. Players like Newcastle players, Palace players, especially if Palace gets a double game week, if they beat Fulham in the FA Cup, they could double in 32 and 33. So if that happens, then maybe it makes sense for you to do option 3 as well. But of course, Mateta is injured now, Hall is injured. So some of those strategies also are facing some issues. But one thing I would I want to call out here is that these projections could change, these fixtures. And chip strategy is entirely team dependent. So definitely look at what's best for your team. Maybe just plan out how the next 3 or 4 game weeks look. And if you have your triple captain or assistant manager chips left, you have to find a way to. I mean, Isak in game week 32 is an option. Salah this week against Southampton, or if there's a double game week in 36. But yeah, for now, I would just save transfers this week if possible, and just focus on game week 29 and see how the fixtures develop.
Yeah, my first thoughts here are, I think I'm definitely saving the free hit. I think just holding on to those chips, free hit and bench boost and all these chips is just valuable as we get more data from the fixture postponements. And I think we probably get that in 31, and that's why 31 plus wildcard is interesting. Wildcard 31 is a really nice sweet spot, I think, because of this fact. And also, given kind of the projections here, I want Haaland in the wildcard team because City potentially can get 2 double game weeks. I want him. I think even though I've been burnt by him, I think a Salah Haaland team is pretty much how I'd want to structure the team. Maybe even get rid of Salah and just have Palmer, because I don't know if Chelsea are doubling, but if Palmer's doubling, then maybe Palmer. But Haaland is definitely going to be in, and to get Haaland, you really need to rearrange your team to kind of optimize it. So I think 31 wildcard is very attractive to me because of this reason. compared to like later on, like in option 3.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. And unfortunately, both Salah and Palmer are unlikely to have blanks unless something comes up, because both teams are out of FA Cup and their opponents are out of the FA Cup as well. I'm not sure what will happen if the Europa League games. Yeah, Chelsea no blank or double entirely, and Liverpool there is a small chance of doubling in 36 and blanking in 37.
I think Palmer is the easy sell
Yeah.
to get Haaland, because a Haaland Salah team is possible without Palmer. And especially if you can kind of, after 32, release some of those Isaac funds. He's not really needed beyond 32, then
Yeah.
I think it's a very viable team. Even though you wildcard in 31, I think you can just maybe save some transfers and rearrange to optimize for 33.
Makes sense. Cool. Let's take a look at the fixture difficulty depending on which ship strategy you're on. Basically, this slide looks at if you're not planning to use your free hit, then you really only have to look at the next 3 game weeks. You can kind of ignore what happens after 31 for now. And I think 5 teams have really good fixtures in the next 3 games. So that's Wolves, Bournemouth, West Ham, Forest and City. I know Forest play City this week, but the next 2 games are really simple with Ipswich and United. Wolves clearly the standout. Unfortunate that Cunha's injured. But yeah, I would basically focus my... I mean, I would honestly look to save the transfer this week. But if you are really in need of bringing someone in, I would focus my transfers on these 5 teams.
Completely agree. I think probably maybe even Everton. I think Everton are fine, especially if you really don't care about holding them on long term and you're just looking till 29.
Yeah.
Because I am looking at Beto, for example, as the 3rd Everton striker because of the dire shortage of strikers in the game at the moment. So, in addition to these 5, I think Everton is probably the only other team.
I'm sure that someone like a Beto will enable Haaland for a lot of teams. And if you can just bench Everton players against Liverpool in 30, that should be okay. But in terms of transfers out, definitely, especially if you're not on free hit, look to get rid of players who are blanking. Only downside is losing team value on players like Isak or Salah, for example, who you might want right after the blank. That's the only concern. But Liverpool defenders, Newcastle defenders, Newcastle midfielders, any Palace and Villa players, if you're not free hitting, I think going into game week 29 is the perfect time to sell them.
Agree. Completely agree.
Now here, this view is a little more interesting. If you are on a free hit 29, then you effectively can ignore game week 29. So I've removed the game week 29 column and sorted it by difficulty. And it's so it's very interesting that the 3 teams that are blanking are actually top of the ticker if you ignore 29. So if you are loaded up on these players, it is a viable strategy to hold on to them. Like Newcastle, Palace and Liverpool are at the top. And then the rest of the teams are the teams which we are looking to bring in anyway, like Wolves and Bournemouth and Arsenal and Man City. So if you have like 7 or 8 players from these teams, maybe it's worth thinking about. Or would you say that you would be okay taking a -8 or playing 9 players and like rolling with it? Like what would your thinking be?
I think it's definitely a possible strategy. Definitely, if you have like 6-7 players blanking, then I would probably free hit and then just push my problems down the line. But I think I'm just going to talk about the downsides here. Like it's good till about, I guess, the double game week for Newcastle and Palace is 31.
32.
And you're not going to wildcard before that. Or maybe you do wildcard before that. You still wildcard in 30 or 31 and shift your team such that you get City players, for example, for 32.
No, I think if you're playing free hit 29, then you have to resign yourself to wildcarding at least till after 33. Because otherwise you might as well, like if you're resetting, the only reason you would free hit is if you want this team for the medium term.
Yeah, I think the reason two options I thought of here was push the wildcard later, like you said.
Yeah.
But the downside of that is you're really going to miss out on optimizing for City players for 32
Correct.
if they get a double.
Yeah.
So do you want? If I was playing the free hit, I would still probably wildcard in 31, even though I have all the players from Newcastle and Palace. Maybe just to I need to kind of experiment around with the team, but if I can kind of manage a Haaland and maybe just a Guardiola, even just two City players, maybe don't go for all three, or a Marmoush and a Guardiola, get two City players, get a few double game week players for 32 in addition to Newcastle and Palace. I would look at that. I think it's definitely a tougher strategy, even with holding on to all these players and free hitting. It's definitely still a more tougher strategy because the 32-33 is just painful if you have a lot of blanks and doubles.
Yeah, and it's also unknown, so it'll be tough to plan for right now. So even if you're on that strategy, I think it makes sense to save transfers, let them roll into after your free hit, and then make maybe 3 or 4 transfers.
I think through free transfers, we can accumulate free transfers until 32. Say you have really good Newcastle and Palace players. You can accumulate 3-4 transfers and you have like 4 or 5 transfers to make in 32. You get a lot of double game week players and then wildcard in 33 to manage the blank. I think that seems viable.
Yeah, so that's basically option 3 that I was suggesting, where you basically survive till the double game week and then you wildcard in the blank game week. And
that's possible. It really depends on structure, right? I would be tempted a little bit, especially if I have 3 Newcastle, 3 Palace, all kind of like set up. Then I would be tempted, as long as you're not running into these injuries like Mateta and Hall. But I do suspect that even those who do have a lot of Newcastle and Palace players are reeling a bit from injuries.
Yeah, because look at Palace's fixtures: Ipswich and Southampton, which is as good as it can get. And then even Newcastle have, after the Carabao Cup final, they have Brentford and Leicester, which are really good attacking fixtures. So, I'm sure no one's selling these players this week anyway.
I think it's viable. It's a good strategy. The wildcard 33, I think, as I spoke about the two options, either wildcard 31 and focus on maximizing for 32. I think that then you're having a big pain with 33. I think if you can accumulate free transfers, go 32 and then wildcard 33, I think that's the best option with that free hit.
Yeah, so 33 is the double and 34 will be the blank. So you would wildcard in 34 or 32 or 31. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Cool. It is still very confusing, and I think this entire month there's just 18 Premier League games. So most of this month is going to be just waiting to see how the fixtures turn out. And then in April, we have like 56 games all of a sudden. So it's just kind of like the calm before the storm. And cool. Let's look at the player-wise point projections now. We'll start with, and I think at this point of the season, with the blank game week coming up, there's no real need to look at this last 6 game week stats, because anyway you're trying to bring in players who have fixtures. You're making decisions based on blanks and like fixtures at this point. But Wood is the player who is projected to get most points ahead of Isak, and Isak of course has a blank, but he's ahead of Haaland. Wood.
Yeah, pretty stunning. But it is a good option. I think that Ipswich game definitely helps in 29.
Yeah.
Maybe even the City game can be profitable. So I would agree. I think Wood is definitely the most attractive option right now, given the price as well. I don't know if he's going to outscore Haaland. I think that may be a bit wishful, but I can see him getting close, or, especially for price performance, I think he'll be the best.
Yeah. And just before we started recording, I had to remove Cunha from the list, but he was right at the top before his suspension.
Very unfortunate for those who got him in.
Yeah. And I think in terms of other options, like Joao Pedro, I would hold. If you already have him, I wouldn't get him in. Evan Nilsson, I think it's a wait and watch. We don't know if he's gonna start.
Looking at this list, I think Bissa's probably just the only other option.
Yeah.
I don't see anything else.
Or maybe go someone cheap like Beto, like you said.
Yeah, Beto probably.
Yeah. Cool. Moving on to midfield, there are a lot more good options in midfield, I feel. And like some players who are not even on this list. So Salah is still the player who has the highest EV in the next 4 game weeks, which tells me that you shouldn't probably be looking to sell him, because he's risen a lot in value over the season, and if you got him early, you're looking to lose a lot of pounds. And Palmer is second. Game week 29 is a bit of a tough game with Arsenal away, but I think that he should be the least of your concerns. He's going to play. He's a quality player. And then there are a lot of midfield options like Bruno, Kluivert, Mbumo, Bowen. All these players are talismans for their team. They have decent fixtures and good matches in Game Week 29 as well. So if you're looking to bring a midfielder in for someone like Gordon or one of the injured midfielders or any other blanking midfielders like Eze, I think these are good options.
Sad to see my boy Mitoma not featuring here. It's just hoping that he might actually enter the. But he almost never comes up in this list. I think throughout the season, he pretty much never comes up. And probably his underlying is just usually not good enough. But he always tends to overperform.
Yeah.
Correctly as well.
Yeah, he's probably not a model's favorite type of player, but he's got that magic in him where like he converts some of these, like you saw his goal against Chelsea, for example, brought the ball down and pretty much scored from a non-existent chance. The only player I would caution here is probably Dango, because we don't know, similar to Evan Nelson, we don't know much about his game time. He came off the bench in the FA Cup game as well.
Agree.
Cool. Moving on to defenders. So just like Salah, Trent also has the highest EV in the next 4, but I would be a little more comfortable selling Trent for game week 29, especially if you're getting someone like a Guardiola or an Arsenal defender. Munoz is another player who has a blank but is featuring highly on this list. And and I think if you're looking to get a cheap defender in for 29, it'll probably be Wolves defenders because they play Southampton in 29, or someone like a Kirkes who has decent fixtures in the next 3.
Yeah, I'm a bit wary of Wolves given losing Cunha. He's a forward, I know, but he is a talisman of the team, so just a bit worried. See how they maybe perform this week before kind of committing to Wolves.
Yeah, I think the only reason to get a Wolves player would be if you're downgrading Trent to upgrade someone to Haaland or something. Yeah. Cool. Munoz has been an absolute revelation. He got an assist last week as well, and he scored in the FA Cup, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, he's reached a new level of. He's reached a new tier in terms of attacking returns.
Agree.
And then finally, keepers. Once again, Wolves keeper right at the top. Pretty weird to see. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't make a keeper. Like, I wouldn't make any transfer this week unless you are struggling to field 11.
That keeper in 29, which would be unfortunate.
Yeah, I think you might as well wait for 29 to make that move at that point.
But even then, would you take a hit on a keeper for a -4?
No.
Or just leave the keeper for the plan?
Hit absolutely not, because you're basically going to need a clean sheet to make that back. And then even then you're not...
It makes sense, right? Even if the keeper is not playing, unless you have a luxury transfer, just leave it.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, if it's for free, I would definitely do it. Yeah. Cool. Let's take a look at our teams now. Starting with the AI team. So this week, Joao Pedro's on the bench. Wissa comes back into the starting 11. We'll wait to see if there's any injury news about Isak. Otherwise, he'll be starting. I think that midfield looks excellent. Salah is definitely the captain. Double Everton defense and double Liverpool defense. So, I think this team looks pretty good, actually.
It looks insane, honestly. That midfield is pretty much fully a talismanic midfield. Very nice forward setup as well. It's too strong. This team is incredibly strong. This is one of the best, I think, going into a game week team I've seen from the AI team in a long time. Very, very good week ahead, I feel.
Yeah, let's see how it turns out. Moving on to my team, just to provide a bit of balance, I have Bruno Fernandes playing against Arsenal. I have Joao Pedro starting. I have double Bournemouth midfield against Spurs. I I do have double Liverpool defense as well, hoping that Trent plays because he's someone who potentially could be subbed early as well. Hopefully, it's after a clean sheet lock. I won't be making any transfers. And I forgot to mention that the AI team also won't be making any transfers this week. I think if Cunha was available, Cunha was the player it was going to bring in. But now I don't think there's any transfer that's going to be made, and it'll roll 2 transfers into game week 29. I already have 2 free transfers. I'll be rolling it into 3 to keep my options open because I want to see if it's worth getting Haaland in. There are some players on my radar. Maybe we'll discuss a bit more detail in next game week spot. But I'm happy to play Watkins. And hopefully Pedro starts and I'll find out if he's a good real option for game week 29 or not. I still have Calvert-Lewin third on the bench, by the way. Like, I think I've owned him for half the season at this point. Like at
He's a prime target for Beto.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's the final luck that you need in Everton.
Yeah, I think like I'm interested to see your team, but if you do have Beto in your team, you've completed the holy trinity of Everton forwards over the season. Yeah, let's go to your team. Damn, I still see Endai.
Yeah, it's a week too early, but Beto might make an appearance next week. That's certainly not off the cards. My team got ravaged by injuries, so I had Hall and Cunha, both out for the foreseeable future, so both had to go. Hall has a blank, so he has to go anyway, probably. And Cunha also has a blank because he fought with someone, so he has to go. So I took a hit, unfortunately. I had to. So I got Wood in. First time I'm owning him this season, so pretty excited, but I do know how this is going to go given how Cunha went and everything else that I've done removing Sar, but hopeful of getting some points there. And I got Kirkes for Hall. Not a great fixture to bring him in for, but I'm still kind of debating starting Kirkes or Robinson. Maybe I would go with Robinson rather than Kirkes, but this is the team for now. Maybe both play if Mitoma misses out.
Yeah, I think you're pretty well set up for 29 also at this point. I think it's just if you bench Isak, Salah and Trent, you basically probably need to make just 1 transfer next week.
Better. So yeah, for next week I think the option that I have is just do a free of, especially with Mitoma's back, just do a free of NDI to Beto and call it quits there. The more exciting thing is maybe get rid of Trent and NDI, take another hit, get Marmoush and Guardiola, do something exciting with City, especially with that Leicester fixture coming up after that.
Yeah, I'm considering something similar. I'll probably have to get rid of Palmer if I want to get Haaland next week. It is on my mind. I don't think I'll be getting rid of Salah. It seems a little too... it seems too reckless. And like I even though I'm in the 600k or 500k ranks, it feels...
I think I'm tempted to do the Trent and Endime move. Yeah. Just for the hit, just because of that Leicester fixture gives that little bit of extra safety net in case like things go horribly wrong. And I don't have to play Greaves because I just know Greaves is like a waiting 0 or like a -1.
Yeah, so if I actually ignore Haaland, I can solve the Greaves problem because I mean Joao Pedro came out of nowhere and added a body to my playing.
But yeah, the problem is Mitoma. I think I'd probably still keep him because I don't know what to do. Or maybe like if Mitoma is injured, then the move I have to make is Trent and Mitoma out and beef up my midfield. But honestly I don't know.
No, I think Mitoma will be back. If not game week 28, he'll definitely be back game week 29. I don't think.
So I think the move if Mitoma is injured would be someone like a Bowen and a Guardiola, and just stick with that.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, there are a lot of interesting midfield options. Even players like Trossard, who we didn't see in the projections, I think they'll be good options too. Cool. Okay. I think that's about it for this week's podcast. Hopefully, it turns out better for us than the last couple of weeks, and I also hope that the AI team keeps going from strength to strength. Any last words?
Yeah, I mean, I just looking at my team, I don't see much hope here because it's like Captain Salah, which will be at like what 200%, maybe more because of triple captaincy. And every player owned just seems extremely highly owned, except for Mitoma, who's injured. So I don't really see much point in this team this week. But I guess things can't go wrong anymore because now I'm just the same as everyone else. So I'll take some satisfaction from that.
No, I think you have enough differentials, and also I think the accumulation of a chip strategy will definitely help. Like that's where you can potentially make gains in terms of overall rank. But our mini league for sure, I think is very competitive and tough to make gains as we've learned this season.
Yeah, but nevertheless, best of luck to everyone else for this week, and we'll see you next time.